Hello dudes and lady dudes, it is Jean here. Today we are going to talk about new laws, cause yay Canada, oh Canada, we have new gun laws. Because of the Nova Scotia shooting, a person who wasn't legally able to own a gun, who got all of his guns that were brought illegally into the country, not through, normal channels, somehow making Jean's AR-15 illegal will protect people from people like that. But we're not going to touch on that. I want to just kind of go this idea and why maybe you're on the fence of, well, why don't more laws like this work? Um, so we're just going to make up a generic situation. We have this law and we're in this area. I don't know how many people, a million people in this area, 10 million people, and there are 1,000 of these people who broke this law. We'll call it Law A or Law 1. And so you have 1,000 criminals, and you're able to arrest 500 of these criminals, and you deal with them. So you have 500 of these criminals that are still out there. They're still disrupting society or whatever. So to crack down on these 500, the political way to do it is not to address the issue of why they would turn to this life of lawlessness. What they do is expand laws. So now Law 1 has now Law 1A. So what you have now is, by doing something, you kind of modify what makes someone these criminals, and you say, well, it's for safety, it has to deal with this Law 1. But all you've really done now, instead of having 1,000 criminals, 500 arrested, 500 not, you now have 500 new criminals. People who were previously law-abiding, they are now criminal. So now you have 1,500 criminals, and out of those 500, you arrest another 100, or you charge them or whatever. And so now on the books, you say, oh look, this new law has caught us 100 more criminals. Um, and they use this, and they champion, they build it up, and they're like, look, we have 600 people here who have been charged now because of Law 1A instead of just Law 1. Any critical thinking person would be like, those people weren't breaking the law before. And out of those 100, a lot of them has to do with either just ignorance that the new changes apply to them, just uncaring, like I'm not actually hurting anyone, I'm going to continue about my life because I'm a decent person. They're trying to follow the new law, but they screwed up, or there was, let's say, paperwork all of a sudden in process. Uh, Talking about Canadian gun owners being the most, uh, just the safest people, the least likely to break laws in Canada, and most of their law breaking have to deal with like either forgetting to renew on time or a renewal issue, or all of a sudden they're now no longer licensed as they're trying to get relicensed. So that's sort of like clerical. So out of these 100 people, there are a lot of these very mild offenses, but whatever, they're now 600. But now you actually have, instead of just 500 people who broke the law, you have 900 who are free. And out of those 400 new ones, most of them are probably going to live their life pretty normally. Like they're not going to suddenly be like, oh, I'm a lawbreaker, so I'm just going to go all out. But there will be some, let's say 50 of them, who are actually like, you know what, I'm already considered a criminal. I can't really change the way I live. I'm not willing to do that. So I'm going to go all out, and instead of, before I would follow Law 1, but I won't follow Law 1A, well, I'm already a criminal, so I may as well break Law 1. So you've actually made it more dangerous. You have actually escalated what people are willing to do because you have just stepped on them. And any person who thinks this process through says, well, that really doesn't, that hasn't helped society as much. If anything, has actually made society worse. You have charged 100 people who didn't really need to be charged, and now 50 more people are breaking Law 1, which we did agree was a good law. And this is what politicians do. They don't care that they've actually ruined the way society works. All they say is, we have 100 more people charged. 100 more people charged means our law worked. It is good. It's not good. It is dumb. It is terrible. Um, you know, it, it should not have happened this way. But it lets them pat themselves on the back, and people look at those numbers and they don't look at the ideas behind the numbers, and they're like, oh yeah, the government, they want to just what's best for us, and then they'll pass Law B and Law C and all this stuff, and they will just stomp on you. This isn't to say new laws are always bad, alright? But new laws should really only come into idea when something new actually is introduced to society. Internet comes and becomes mainstream, and so we put laws, we expand the laws on child protection to include protecting children online, exploiting children online. This is good. We got the automobile back, you know, the devil's carriage back in turn of the previous century, 1900s. Um, and it's like, okay, we need some laws to incorporate it, not to, you know, because it's just the Wild West. And honestly, there are now too many probably driving laws, and there are places in Europe that have tested and studied, and they actually show that the more we remove safety signs and safety rules on these roads, the more people actually are safer, because now they actually realize that they have to pay attention. Just something to throw out there. But as new things, and you know, new things that robotics will say, you know, whatever the next kind of big thing, we do introducing new laws for new things is is the way to go about it. Now, obviously, the government's going to reach over and try to grab as much power in these new laws. So we still, even in these new things, have to say no, stop, no. This is, you know, we'll protect children online. That's fine, but you don't get to regulate free speech online. Things like that. So, but that just new. The thing is, if something's been around for a while, we probably don't need new laws regulating it. We probably don't need to expand or to, you know, modernize the language. Now, there could be some exceptions, but in general, we don't, because the law should apply to people then as is now. People like to use, well, Second Amendment only applied to muskets. Actually, the Second Amendment was to give the people the right to be a well-regulated militia, not regulated like government regulations, but to be a well-run, functioning, updated militia. If anything, the Second Amendment should say that the militia should have everything it needs to do what a militia does, which is to be a stand-in army in a time of great need. Anything, it would say that would even say that we should be supplied with, or Americans, not us up here in Canada, should be supplied with the means to be as up to date as the Army. Not, well, you can only have muskets. So, you know, a lot of these ones, well, new technology came out, well, new, you know, the internet came out. We don't need to update the First Amendment. No, free speech is free speech. Um, you know, this came out, that came out. No, you don't need to update things around it. The law still applies. You know, oh well, people live in million, you know, just houses that are the size of the towns of back when the Constitution. Well, it doesn't mean we can store soldiers there. That is their property. You know, things like that. It's things that have been around for a while generally don't need new laws. It just when we add new and more, you're doing nothing as far as safety, making it safer, or society, or things like that. You're not doing it for that reason. You're doing it to grab more power. The only way to really give the power back to the people is to repeal laws, to take them away. And unfortunately, we don't really see that anymore. The government is unwilling. They're unwilling to the point they have convinced us that you don't take away laws. That's not the way you do it. But you can actually see it in history. I mean, the U.S. Constitution has amendments that are quite literally taking away a previous amendment. Of course, that hasn't happened in quite a while, but it's possible. You know, putting in a law and then removing, you know, prohibition, boom. It's a thing that used to happen a lot more than it does now, and not usually on such a grand scale. But this is laws. This is laws nowadays is them adding new laws to old things because they want new power, not because of new safety or new times. No, leave laws alone. Just strip laws down to the basic, because really, If anything, you should look at, okay, why are these 500 people, why are these 1,000 people lawbreakers? Is there a way where we could get them to function in society and reduce that number? There probably is, by saying, okay, law 1 is too restrictive in this area, and it doesn't really help, so let's throw it out, and all of a sudden, boom, we have 500 lawbreakers and 400 of them are in jail. That'd be a whole lot better. But that's not what the government wants to do, and that's really what the citizenry needs to come forward and say, okay, enough is enough, do this. Anyway, hopefully you like this video. If you did, do the YouTube stuff, share, subscribe, like, hit the bell. I don't know, there's a lot of stuff you have to do to really make the channel better. But if you didn't like it, you know what to do. Go make the world a better place and spite Jean by feeding a homeless person. Because obviously Jean wants to watch the world burn, and when you make the world a better place, it just really gets to me. And then of course hit that thumbs down. Thank you for watching, and I will see you again.